we have already reviewed the 4 elements of music: rhythm, melody, harmony, and form. And now this is our 5th, which is musical expression, and it goes under the word timbre, T-I-M-B-R-E, not timbre as we see it here, but timbre, and that's musical expression. And in that category, we're going to talk about dynamics, degrees of loud and soft, rhythmic nuance, different ways that we can alter rhythms, articulation, how we play, and tone color, what the music sounds like. So we have different degrees of loud and soft, going from extremely soft to extremely loud. And we start out with PP, which is an abbreviation for pianissimo, which is very soft, the softest you can play without distortion. Then, gradually louder is piano, abbreviated with just a P. MP stands for mezzo piano. Mezzo in Italian means medium or half. So MP, mezzo piano, is slightly louder than piano. Then we go to mezzo forte, MF. The F stands for forte, which means strong. Some people say it means loud, but I'm careful about using the term loud because loud could be distorted. So for a beautiful, strong sound, that's loud in volume. We'll use the literal translation for that, mezzo forte, medium strong. Then forte, which is louder than mezzo forte, and then fortissimo, which is a double F, and that's the loudest dynamic that we have. We might see sometimes, some publishers might put 3 Fs here or 3 Ps here, but common notation uses these. Now, I have them below and above a symbol that starts from a small to a large space here. This alone is called a crescendo, gradually getting louder and louder. So if I were talking softly and I was gradually getting louder and louder and louder, this is what that would do in music. Crescendo, increase, crescendo. It has the root of the word in it. Decrescendo, decrease. Also the word diminuendo, diminish, means gradually getting softer. So we have gradually getting louder, which is a crescendo, increase in loudness, and a decrescendo, decrease, which is diminishing the sound, diminuendo. Decrescendo and diminuendo mean the same thing, and means gradually getting softer. Those are the degrees of loud and soft that are most commonly used. We also use accents, where we put extra stress, strong stress on notes. This is what it looks like if it's underneath a note. This is what it looks like if it's on the top of a note. And it's a miniature crescendo. So the next concept we're going to talk about is, and I'm calling it rhythmic nuance. We studied rhythms and note values and how long they're held for, etc. This vocabulary that we have here is going to alter in some way those note values. So the first one we have here is a fermata, known in some circles that are non-musicians as a bird's eye. But it is a dot with a semicircle over it. And if that's over a note, we hold it for a longer period of time. If it was over a half note is 2 beats. So it would be held for more than 2 beats. And usually, depending upon if there's a conductor conducting an orchestra, the conductor will hold onto that which is musically appropriate for the song and cut off. Or the pianist, if somebody's performing a piano or a violin or a solo instrument, they would hold it for as long as they thought was musically appropriate. So we see fermatas a lot of times to create an effect. Ritardando is the Italian word for to slow down. Ritardando. It is abbreviated two different ways. By retard and with a period after that, or R-I-T, rit. We don't say that. Usually we say retard. That's what we say when we say, is there a retard at the end of the piece? That means to gradually slow down. Accelerando, we see the word accelerate in that, and that means just what it looks like it says, and that's to gradually get faster. Accelerate with the gas pedal in a car, accelerando, to gradually get faster. Rubato. Rubato means to rob or to steal from one note to another. And so it's loosely performing the rhythms that are there. So say you have 4 quarter notes. They might be played one a little bit longer than another, depending upon the intent the composer had for that particular piece of music. And then a tempo. If we were in a ritardando or a rubato and we want to go back to the original tempo, the original speed, we would see a tempo. So fermata, meaning hold in Italian, hold. Ritardando, which means gradually getting slower. Accelerando, gradually getting faster. Rubato, to rob the value from one note to another. And a tempo, which means go back to the original tempo, the original speed. Next, we're going to look at articulation. It is the way the music is played. We can equate it to how we punctuate in regular language that we speak. We have periods and commas and exclamation points, etc. Well, we have punctuation in music as well. These were developed, the articulation was developed more in the Baroque and Classical era when more vocal music started becoming more popular, and it was influenced strongly by people who were giving speeches and orations. Staccato. Staccato means short and detached. It is designated by a dot placed above or below a note. And if I were to sing a song, or just the scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, if each one of those notes had a staccato marking on it, it would be short and detached. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. Legato is the opposite of it. It means smooth and connected. And it's designated by a curved line. So I would sing do, re, mi, fa, sol. It would be connected. Tenuto is a little dash underneath or above a note that basically designates us to play with a little bit more pressure. So it doesn't mean it's a loud accent, but a very subtle one. And marcato is the opposite of that. It's the strongest accent, and if you want a real dramatic effect, you would put the marcato marking, which is an upside down V, over or under a note. So those are articulation techniques that we use in performing music. Next, we're going to take a look at tone color. Tone color is the sound that an instrument makes that distinguishes it from another instrument. I have here a friend of mine, musician friend of mine, Pierre Gerton, who's going to help demonstrate some of the instruments that we're going to talk about in the various families. The first family that we're going to talk about is the brass family. Brass family, the instruments are made out of brass, and can you share with everyone more aspects of the brass family?
Well, with brass families, what we do is we purse our lips and buzz into the mouthpiece in order to produce sound. That's basically what we do.
And the trumpet is the highest brass instrument?
Of the family, there are higher trumpets, a piccolo trumpet, which is higher and whatnot, but trumpets are the highest in the brass family.
Okay, great. Can you demonstrate a song for us? Nice, nice. So it's loud, it's strong. That was a strong sound. It's bright, it's brassy. We can call it brassy.
Yeah.
And it sounds, other brass instruments sound like that as well. But the other instruments are going to be a different range. The next brass instrument we're going to talk about is the French horn. It's the next lower in range from the trumpet. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. The next instrument we're going to look at is the trombone. It's one of the lower brass instruments.
Yes,
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, in the hierarchy, the baritone and the trombone are in the same range. The one that's lower is tuba, which is a much larger instrument. The biggest difference between the baritone and the trombone is the baritone uses valves like a trumpet does, whereas the trombone uses a slide to change notes. And then you can slide.
The lowest member of the brass family is the tuba. And here's an example of the tuba. So the next family we're going to look into is the woodwind family. And there are different ways of playing woodwind instruments that create different colors. And I think that the woodwind family has the most diversity of color.
Yes, it does, with the entire family.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. The first instrument we're going to talk about is the flute. Want to tell us a little bit about the flute?
Well, it's generally the highest instrument in the band or the orchestra. Its relative, the piccolo, is an octave higher than this.
And it's a smaller instrument.
Smaller, yeah. So the smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch. And the bigger the instrument, the lower the pitch. Now this is the flute.
And as you said, the piccolo is a smaller flute, looks like this, only smaller, and has a much higher range. So the next instrument we're going to explore is the clarinet. And Pierre, why don't you talk a little bit about and demonstrate a little bit about the clarinet?
Well, the clarinet here is in the clarinet family. This is the bass clarinet, and this is the clarinet. There are numerous clarinets in the family, ranging from high to lower sounds, depending on the size. The shorter ones obviously being a higher sound, and the larger ones being a lower.
Can you play something for us on the clarinet? Wow, that shows a large range from high to low.
And the bass clarinet
Want me to take
is, I'll just put it right here. Thank you. The bass clarinet is the same instrument, but what we call an octave lower.
Nice. So the instruments that we've looked at so far, the flute and the woodwind family, the flute, the clarinet, and the bass clarinet, have a very soft and fluffy and round sound. It's very pleasant. The next two instruments, the oboe and the bassoon, use a different kind of mouthpiece that creates more of a reedy sound. Sounds more like a duck, a quacking, a nasally sound. So you'll hear those two examples coming up. So our next instrument we're going to talk about is the saxophone. Actually, the family of saxophones, because there's different ranges for different saxes. And well, first let's talk about the history, or how it came to be.
The saxophone was invented by a man named Adolphe Sax, hence the name saxophone, in Belgium around 1846. And so, since it's one of the newest instruments that has been invented, and so a lot of composers like Mozart and Beethoven didn't have the chance to write for the saxophone because it wasn't around yet.
So it came out in the kind of the middle of the Romantic period.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then emigrated here to America, and of course, when jazz guys got a hold of it, it found its home.
Mm-hmm. Why was it invented? I mean, we had a clarinet.
Well, what Adolphe Sax was looking at the orchestra, and he wanted a bridge between the woodwind family and the brass family, something that had the warmth of a woodwind reed, yet made out of brass so it could be powerful enough to be able to herd along with the brass instruments, but still have the warmth of a woodwind.
You talked about a reed.
Mm-hmm.
You want to explain a little bit about
this? Well,
this?
These are reed instruments, and the reed's right here, and the reed vibrates. We have our embouchure, which is every wind instrument uses an embouchure. It's using our muscles in our mouths in a different way from talking. And the brass family, as I said before, is on the outside, whereas the woodwind family, you put it inside your mouth and you blow through the reed so the reed can vibrate.
Great. Oh, play it. Nice. That was the Pink Panther, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I was going to ask you to play that. That's great. That's great. So that's the alto.
This
now,
is the alto saxophone.
is there a higher
Yes,
range?
there's the soprano saxophone. Usually it's seen straight. Sometimes you'll see a very smaller version of this, that is a soprano as well, or curved versions. But usually, like Kenny G, you see him with a straight soprano. That's usually the way you see them. And then the next in line is the alto. Then after that is the tenor saxophone.
Which is larger.
Which is larger.
So it has a lower tone?
So it has a lower tone.
Nice. And there's one more.
Well, there's 17 all in the family.
Oh,
really,
goodness.
yes.
17 saxophones.
Yes, but you'll never see any but the four: the soprano, the alto, the tenor, and the baritone saxophone. And that one has, when outside of the mouthpiece, has a little curly cue, and then it goes down into a big bell instrument. It's quite large.
It's larger.
Mm-hmm.
And it has lower pitch.
And it's lower, because it's a bigger instrument.
Well, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
The next family of instruments we're going to look at is the percussion family. And it's defined basically by an instrument that you can bang or hit. And we're going to demonstrate some of these now. This is a regular hand drum. Different parts of it, of the skin, have different colors to it. The next one's a tambourine, which has a higher frequency, higher pitch to it, with these little cymbals, mini cymbals on them. They're crashing and creating that very high-pitched rattle. And you can use it for keeping steady beats and different effects. The next instrument is a fun one. This is called the cabasa. And it gives that little a rubbing feel, a rustic feel, and is oftentimes used in Latin music. The djembe is an African drum, and it's not played with the bottom. It won't sound, but it plays when you hit the top skin. The sound comes out of the bottom. So within the instrument itself, it has a different range, higher on the ends and then lower in the middle. The claves, these two wooden bars, they resonate when you hit them correctly, and they're also used for Latin music quite frequently. The next instrument is the maracas. Again, used for Latin music often. Then we have a triangle. Again, these are all banged or hit, shaped like a triangle, and it's called a triangle. And it's made out of steel, and the mallet is the same material. We have finger cymbals. Which are very high in pitch, used to replicate bells. These are medium-sized cymbals. You know the big cymbals that they have that they crash in orchestras, basically cymbals. This is a gyro, held here, 2 fingers. Whatever kinds of rhythms will accompany. Also used a lot in Latin music. We have here the bongos, which have also, the smaller one here is a higher pitch than the larger one, and the skin on the top is tightened or loosened to change the pitch. If it's tighter, it's a higher pitch. If it's looser, it's a lower pitch. And of course, smaller means higher and lower means lower. Larger means lower. Why don't you play a little bit of so you heard that was higher than that one. So those are bongos. This is a conga drum. Little different color, little different timbre. This is a marimba. Now marimbas are that are used in orchestras are much bigger, but the concept is the same, where they use a mallet. To sound those, and they're made out of wood. And then our last percussion instrument is the piano. So this is the piano, and inside the piano is a harp. And low strings, big fat ones here. And then these are the middle range. And then these are the upper range. And the reason why we call this a percussion instrument is because right here we see hammers. I don't know if you can see them. The hammers are banging the strings. The next family of instruments we're going to talk about is the string family. And the string family, just like in the other families, the smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch. The larger the instrument, the lower the pitch. These are the shape of a human body. And string instruments like the violin, the viola, and the cello, and the guitar are all shaped the same way. The range of the violin is high. So the strings that you would play and that's legato playing. If I played staccato, it'd be so that's short and detached. So that's the violin. It has 4 strings and is the highest instrument pitch-wise in the string family. Now the viola, which is here, is larger than the violin. If you were playing in an orchestra, there'd be a first violin section and a second violin section. And they would be playing 2 parts, the violin 1 part, the violin 2 part with this instrument. About 12 people per part. And then there would be the viola section. And the viola section has similar strings to the violin. The violin has a high E string. We don't have a high E string on the viola. We have a lower string. Here's the, and then a lower string. Now, the color of the violin was I don't know, it seems to be lyrical, bright, fluid. The viola has a little different sound to it. It's a little bit more, a deeper, rounder sonority. The lower range that we hear. Has 3 of the same strings as the violin, so you can play some of the range of the violin and then go up really high in positions. Now the cello, which is the next lowest instrument, it has the same strings as the viola. And I'm going to play the viola strings while Pierre plays the cello strings, and you're going to notice that the viola is going to be an octave higher than the cello. Cello's playing an octave lower than the viola. So let's play the A string together. I'll play mine first. So the deeper, richer tones, the lower tones, come from the cello. The next largest instrument, which I don't have, is the bass violin, or the contrabass, and I'll show you a video of that now.